thinking in that language, whatever our target language may be, in this case it's going to be English, is going to make things not just easier, it's going to expose us to a completely different world altogether. It's going to start taking us towards that conversational level, towards that native speaker level of that language. And I'm going to share a few tips with you in this video on how you can actually leave that translating game behind in your life and move towards thinking in English. Story time. So when I was in Denmark, that was the first time I went out of India. So that means that was the first time where I was primarily exposed to a foreign language. And the fun thing was the circle that I was in, there was mostly English speakers. They were Danish people, so they were Danish speakers as well, but they were very good at English because we had a lot of international players at the club, at the university, etc. However, outside of that circle, a lot of people didn't even speak English. It was Danish, and those people weren't really good at English as well. So initial couple of weeks, things were a tad bit difficult for me because I used to hear something in English, and even though I was exposed to English quite a lot, so I could understand everything A to Z, it wasn't a problem. These guys were also considerate that English might not be my first language. However, technically I had studied English in school, so I could understand everything, but I wasn't really comfortable answering everything in English, or rather I wasn't as fast. So it felt like those conversations, they were dragged on much longer than they should have, just because I was struggling to find words. I was struggling to find words out of Hindi into English, then back to English to Hindi to English. It was a mess in my brain, and that constant translation was tiring. It kept me away from those conversations. However, by the end of, I'll say, maybe month 1, I had started to think to myself in English. So there are a couple of things that I did during my time in Denmark that allowed me to do all of that within a month. So I'm going to share those couple of exercises with you, even though at that time I didn't feel I was doing an exercise. I was just doing that something that I felt like. Now that I think back towards it, I think there are 2 key things that I've done that allowed me to achieve that. These days, I can think to myself in English, I can think to myself in Hindi, in Punjabi, in Marathi, and slowly I'll progress into thinking to myself in Japanese as well, because that's the language that I'm learning now. So with that being said, let's see what's going to happen in this video. In this video, by the way, you're going to enter the proverbial door as somebody who's probably not as confident in thinking in English. They are somebody who translates every single conversation and feels intimidated by the language. And on the other side of this door, you're going to emerge as a person who's confident in thinking in English. Now, what are these 2 exercises? So number 1, one of the things that I constantly used to do was, because I didn't have my own vehicle in Denmark, so there was a bicycle or there was my 2 feet, and that's the actual vehicle that I use the most, my 2 feet. I took very long walks. In fact, I took a train, went to a different city called Aalborg, took walks there, saw a lot of people, ate McDonald's, etc. and whatnot, and it was amazing all in all. But those long walks, this is, by the way, 2014. So that means Instagram exists, Facebook exists, but there are no reels, etc. So I don't have something on my phone. I don't have earphones plugged in. I took a half an hour train, and then I'm walking for another couple of hours. I come back, walk for a kilometer-ish to the place where I used to live. And it was, number 1, those walks were amazing because I got to see Denmark. I got to really see Denmark. I got to be in the streets that you wouldn't usually go to, because kind of usually tourists have these tourist spots that they go to. But during those walks, I was exposed to the country. I was exposed to English signs. I was exposed to mainly signs in Danish, but I was exposed to new people, ticket checkers and whatnot, and they conversed in English as well. So the cool thing about that was, during those walks, I started to think to myself in English. And that's the exercise that we are going to do as our first exercise. So what I want you to do is take a seat. I don't want you to take a walk. You can take a walk if you want. However, for the start, I think it's going to be better to take a seat where you are comfortable, a sofa or something where you are comfortable. Your phone shouldn't be with you. However, we want a 15 or maybe 20-minute timer on your phone. You can keep your phone in a different room. You can keep your phone away from you on a different table, etc. We don't want your phone with you. We don't want anything. If you like chai, if you like tea, coffee, have a cup of tea or coffee with you and enjoy that while you do this exercise. I want you to just let the thoughts come into your mind. Some thoughts may even be, your wife asked you to do something, you've not done it, right? Or your husband asked you to do something and you haven't done it. So some thoughts could be this, I want to do this in life, I want to do this in life. Let the thoughts come. We are not meditating here, so we don't want to focus on one thing. We want the thoughts to cycle, and slowly I want you to try and change those thoughts that come into your mind into English. The thought comes in your mind, you let it pass through your mind, but that needs to be in English. And it's going to be a slow process, right? Sometimes you'll feel that you are putting in a lot of work, but if you do this exercise enough, if you do it for a couple of weeks, maybe 10 minutes or 5 minutes every single day for a week, things are going to change. You're going to start thinking these thoughts in English. I forgot to do that. I forgot to put laundry. Oh, I need to record another video. Oh, I need to submit this XYZ for the consulting assignment that I'm doing, etc. And you're going to start thinking in English. It initially, by the way, this might even be, let's say, 80% in your native language, 20% in English. We want that at least 50-50 or maybe even better. So this exercise is going to help you do that. Number 2. So we only have 2 exercises here, so we are at the last one. Make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you're interested in more such videos. Moving on to number 2. So this is your self-talk in English. It's pretty much the same thing as we just did. However, we took out special time to sit at one spot and practice, kind of like meditating. In this case, I don't want you to sit at any spot or actually focus on things. Our self-talk is one of the most frequent things that we do in our lives. So we spend the most amount of time with ourselves, and mostly that self-talk is in our native language. So when I was learning Marathi, I had turned that self-talk into Marathi with myself. When I was learning English, I had that self-talk in English. So that's one of the big things. We don't want to take out separate time for this. Whenever we are doing things, sometimes we have this self-talk. Oh, I forgot to do this. Oh, I need to achieve these goals. So if you are writing those goals down, you're going to have some self-talk. Or maybe something bad happens and you're having, let's say, a consoling session with yourself. You're consoling yourself, or maybe you're talking to yourself about your goals, anything for that matter of fact. Try and have that in English. Self-talk, I think maybe it's funny enough, self-talk is probably the lengthiest conversation that we have in our life with anyone, for the matter of fact. If you're able to turn your self-talk into English, you're going to have more experience in thinking in English and almost speaking in English than a lot of other people around. And the point is, when we have self-talk, we usually have some kind of lip movement as well. So this will also allow you to get better at speaking in English, or rather speaking exactly whatever comes to your mind as is in English, as opposed to thinking of something in Hindi or your native language and translating it in English and then speaking it. That's what we want. Thoughts enter our mind in English and they come out of our mouth as is, of course with some filter. We can't just go about saying everything that comes into our mind, but this is self-talk, so we can say whatever we want, and that's what I want you to do. So these are the 2 exercises that I believe are going to help you 100% to stop that translation and move into thinking in English. The reason, pretty simple. These are the things that have helped me to reach that fluency in 4 different languages at this point. And I do hope that these tips help you out to achieve that same fluency as well. If you have any questions, which I'm sure you are going to have, leave them in the comments below and smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're interested in such videos. I have a ton more planned for you. I'll see you guys next time. Till then, take care.